Okay, cool. So class 5, we are on the last part of the Maya fundamental section of this workshop. And then the next class, we're going to be jumping into Animbot, which is awesome stuff. Man, it's crazy how powerful Animbot is. And every update just gets better and better. I love it. But yeah, stay tuned for that. There's a lot of other examples that I've provided with you guys. There's a lot of fun things that I provided for you guys to kind of break down in your own time. But for the last part of our Maya fundamentals class, what we're going to start with is actually a little bit of rigging. So I'm going to set my project here. I've been using the same project for the entire class. And then from there, I'm going to open up an example scene, going to samples and the ARM example. Open. Let's see if this is the right one. Cool. Oh, this is my, okay, cool. Sweet. Those. And I'm going to open up my outliner just so it's easier for you guys to see what I'm doing. Sorry. Here we go. Cool. Okay. Actually, this is not the one. I should have another one. There's this one. Okay. And then there's this one. Okay. All right. So I guess I got it in a different, I guess I have them in different files. All right. So we'll just start with this one. So the example I opened up is ARM example FK. So let's start with that. I want to talk a little bit first about the concept behind IK and FK. So you guys may have heard this term before. It's pretty much different systems in way you manipulate your limbs being your arms or your legs. And so what IK stands for is inverse kinematics, and what FK stands for is forward kinematics. I'm not going to get into the technicalities of what they both mean and all that good stuff, but I will explain to you guys, I'll explain it to you guys in a way that will make sense to you for our purposes, for an animator's purpose, right? So IK is, it's a system that controls a skeleton much like a puppet. So where if you are grabbing the point where that control is located, the rest of the skeleton react accordingly, right? So just like a puppet or like on a marionette, right? If the string were here and we were to manipulate that point of the string, it would move the entire arm, right? It would move my entire arm. Whereas forward kinematics, again, generally speaking, is a system that controls a skeleton more practically and closer to how a real skeleton would work, where joints have like a parent and child relationship, right? This joint will move because this joint is moving, right? And these joints are moving because this joint is moving. So that's actually what I have up here, an FK setup. And you can see that right here, move this, right here, I have a control for my wrist, which is giving me all of my rotates. And I have a control for my lower arm here, which is giving me this, and my upper arm here, which is giving me this. And so this would be a FK setup, which would be a forward kinematic setup. There are a few different instances to where how these would react differently with the body, but we'll get into that later once we get into a full character. I just want to talk to you guys a little bit about FK and IK first. So this is our FK example. I'm going to open up our IK example now. And you'll see that I only have one control this time. And just like the marionette light I was talking about, it reacts as it generally would if you were controlling it from this point, just like a puppet. And this is a goal. This is the IK or the pole vector. Not the IK, sorry. This is the pole vector of the IK that pretty much controls the aim of the elbow. So I'll give you an example. So if my arm were bent like this, translate and rotate it, this acts as a goal for the elbow to aim at. I'm going to control Z all the way back. And so that's pretty much IK and FK. And like I said, you'll find the same setup for our legs too. And depending on what you're animating and depending on the situation that you're animating, you're going to want different setups. For example, if let's say if a character were to be writing something with a pen, right? It'd be a lot easier to do that in IK than it would in FK. Or let's say if a character were doing jumping jacks, right? It'd be a lot easier to do that with an FK setup as opposed to an IK setup. So choose the setup that you want wisely, depending on the situation that you're going to be animating. Okay, so that's pretty much it for IK and FK. So now I'm going to go over different character rigs. So I know that the typical rigs that you guys are probably used to, or that you guys are more aware of, are just characters, right? Bipedal characters, human characters, but there's also creatures. There are also vehicles. There are also props, and we're going to go over a few. Over a few different examples. That way, you guys can just get an idea of how you would interact with those kind of rigs that aren't humans. We will get to characters for sure, but I'd like to start with the simplest of them, being our prop rig. So I'm going to go out of here, go into our rigs, and I will go into our prop rig. And our prop rig is a lightsaber. So this is how you'd see a prop rig set up. You'd have a control here that you'd ideally put in someone's hand. You'd probably end up constraining one of these, or you'd be constraining one of the nodes above it, like a null node above it, like I was explaining in earlier classes. But you can very well constrain this one if you want to, and then you can not touch this controller at all and just use this controller underneath it. You can see that this control is a child of this control. So whatever happens to this one will happen to this one, and you'll also be able to animate this on top of all the motions that are happening here. So let's say if like a character is like swinging it like this way, but it's like spinning at the same time, right? You'll be able to have the bringing up with the arm on this control, and you'll be able to get the spinning right here using this control. And so there's some other controls on here. I'm actually not quite sure what these ones do. Let's find out. Okay, I think this just rotates the blade or rotates the neon. Let's see, and I'm guessing this might be some kind of a smear. Yep, cool. So this might be a lot more helpful then. Sweet. And then let's go up here. I'm guessing this is a smear this way. Yep, very cool. And I'm guessing this is just to bend the entire thing. Yep. And do any rotate? No, probably don't want to use that. Scale, maybe. Ooh, sorry, I'm on discrete scale. Sorry. Yeah. This is also important to do what I'm doing right now. I'm just kind of playing around with the rig. I always try and open up the rig and I try to explore like what each control does, and I always try and find out which controls do I need to use or do I want to use, and which controls don't I need to use. I always try and animate as efficiently as possible and use as few controls as possible because it can get really hectic really quickly. Because you can imagine, right? Even with just these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 controls, right? With 3 channels each, at least, right? Let's say we're animating the translates or the rotates of each of these 6 controllers. I mean, that's 18 channels already. And if we're going to do like translates and rotates for all 6, that's, what is that? 36? Something like that? Yeah, anyway. And let's go on to the vehicle rig. So our vehicle rig's right here. Sweet, we got a little cartoony truck. Okay, cool. So let's Some of the normals are cool. So yeah, here we go. Have our vehicle rig. So let's go ahead and just play around with it. So this would be a placement control. It's kind of funny. These tires are flat. I didn't realize that until now. But if you were to put it along a path, let's say in your scene, you might want to use one of these controls just to control, constrain it to a path, and then so it would follow along the path. Or maybe you just want to control the translate Z and the translate X. Like if it were going fast on a freeway, and maybe you want to control the rotates with just this one. Separate your animation that way. And then let's see, this would be a good one to have kind of like a bumpity control. It looks like a pretty like a rickety truck. Is this a squash and stretch? Oh, how cool. Nice. So there's an overall squash and stretch. Oh yeah, nice. Control for, I wouldn't control that, but I'd probably control these. Nice controls for some secondary. Swinging in the, swinging off the rear view mirror. Oh, GPS, huh? This is a pretty high-tech truck for being so rickety. Okay. Steering wheel. Aha, would you look at that? It controls the wheels as well. That's great. And I'm guessing these are the doors. What gave it away? Headlights. Aha, so only rotates on the headlights. This is just the engine. Okay, so the engine hood. Is there anything inside? There is not. Let's see what these wheels do, huh? Is it just, oh, look at that. It's actually a built-in squash. Very nice. So it calculates the distance from the ground. Very cool. So the further into the ground it goes, flat tire, not flat tire. Very nice. So yeah, I'm glad I played around with it. Okay, for turning, even more if you need. And mud cards, nice, okay, cool. And this is the exhaust. Let's see what this does. Okay, nothing special. Yeah, so you can see how you would possibly have to interact with this. If you have a character, let's say in a shot, opening this up, you'd probably want, uh-oh, there's another mesh right there. You'd probably want some kind of, sorry, I'm just gonna do this real quick, excuse me. Mesh display, reverse, okay, cool. So if you were to imagine you had a shot with a character getting into this car, right? You have a control for the door, which is great. I would ideally look for some kind of mechanism to open the door, whether it's like a handle like this, or like you push a button and then it opens. So this is all good. And another issue that I would probably bring up is I think it'd be very hard to fit into this truck or to climb into this truck just because there's no clearance right there. And these are the kind of questions you want to start asking yourselves once you get your shot and start walking through all your different rigs that you have. Like, okay, if I got a character, like I walk through right now, if I got a character going into the store, how does the store open? Can the door open wide enough? What does it look like when it opens? Because we can see now that we can see that there's no hinge here. And like I was talking about the clearance, how's he going to climb, or how is he or she going to climb up into this truck? And so on and so forth. Okay, so let's now move on to the characters. And the character we're going to open up is Mr. Toy. Oh no. I think Maya ate my display and I cannot see my viewport anymore. That's frustrating. Okay, pardon me. I'm going to crash my Maya and open it again. Give me 1 second. Let's see. Actually, you know what? Let me just open another Maya. How about that? And then I'll crash my old one. Oops, sorry. Don't mind that. Cool. Come on. I'm guessing it's loading Animbot, and there it is. Okay, cool. Now I can close this one. That's giving me problems. All right, now I'm going to set my project again. I'm using the same project like as I always have. I'm going to open the rig. Oops, rigs, toy rig. So let's hope it doesn't eat my display this time. Hooray. Okay, cool. We have Mr. Toy. Awesome, awesome character. He's super, super robust. He's really, really flexible. Pretty much anything that you want from him, you'll be able to get. I'm really impressed with this rig. Not all the time in productions do you get rigs as robust as this, and he's pretty light too. So, much props. Okay, cool. So let's just go ahead and go through test out the functionality of the rig. So I know from having worked with him a little bit that this heart up here, you'll see that there's channels for different controls, right? If I hide these off, these are the primary controls. These are the secondary controls. We have even more controls, extra controls, even more Bezier controls, and lattice controls. It's a lot of stuff, which is great, but it could also be very, very dangerous. You got to be careful. So let's go ahead and just walk through. So I'm guessing this is COG. COG, like people refer to it as the cog, or cog being COG standing for center of gravity. Cool. And actually, I am going to lighten him even a little bit more. I'm going to select his mesh. You can see that it's in the display layer down here. I'm just going to right click, select objects. I'm going to hit 1. That way he is not on subdivided mode. Cool. Oops. There we go. That helped a little bit. All right. So that is his cog. Let's see. What's he look like when he rotates? Okay. Oh, then we have scale. Let's see if it actually, not quite. Doesn't quite work the way we were expecting. So I probably want to stay away from that. His waist. He does have a stretchy spine. We can rotate it. Can we scale it? Maybe, maybe not. This works as a spine IK control. Okay. So there you go. This is another system that we were talking about. So you can see that there's IK on the spine, and if we use this control, it would act as if it were being pulled by a string. Same with this. This is an IK control also. Cool. So if we wanted to bend him forward like that, we would most likely do something like this. Yeah. All right. Cool. Good to know. And the neck, we have our neck control. And we have our head control right here. Cool. We got shoulders right here. Got hands. And so Toy has this really, really awesome, well, actually, let's find out what this is first. Okay, so if we want to extend the legs at all, the base of the leg we can control. That's nice. Toy actually has this really, really awesome control. It's a master finger control, and so when you manipulate this, you can see that most of these channels are locked out, but the ones that are available to us are the rotates, and by using this, we get really, really cool shapes for free. So you can see that the Z will kind of curl back and forth. The Y will splay. No. It'll move this way. I forgot the term, I'm sorry. And this will kind of like spread them out this way, which is really awesome. Okay, and it looks like we have our IK FK switch here. So if we were going to turn this on, I would get my FK arm, and the FK arm works as you would expect it to. And so this rig does have it, and thankfully the design doesn't hinder it too much. So on an FK rig, or on an FK arm, I should say, it should be noted, this is a hinge joint. This does not rotate. It only rotates in one axis. The rotate that we get from the arm comes from up here. The twist that we get from the arm comes from here, right? So if you were gonna twist our elbow like this, that rotation is coming from here. Maybe a little bit of the shoulder, but most of it's coming from here, the ball and socket joint. Any rotation that's coming from here should only be a hinge joint like this. And I'll show you on the rig. It should only be like this. But you'll see that these channels actually allow us to break the arm and rotate it in different ways. And so with this rig, we can tell by his design that his sleeve is completely black. And so if we were to turn this way and turn it this way, there's not much way of us knowing. So, you know, we might be able to get away with that. But if we were using a character, let's say that has like a Bruce Lee jumpsuit, right? It's like a bright yellow jumpsuit, and it's long sleeve, and there's a stripe going down his shoulder all the way to his wrist. So if we were to turn this like this, we would clearly see the stripe go down here and continue up here. That would clearly be wrong, right? The stripe would always be intact like this. So in rigs that do have all of the rotates unlocked for something like this, it's something just to be aware of. I'm not saying don't use it, just use it wisely. Okay, and here we go. This is exactly what we were talking about, an IK setup with the feet. So most of the time, you're going to want an IK setup with the feet. There are certain circumstances where you want an FK setup, and we'll go over that in a second. So yeah, what's great about this is that you can lower down his center of gravity and his feet will stay on the ground, right? But let's say, actually, let's find the control that'll, yep, back here. We switch that to FK. And so one thing that I find FK legs useful for is when your character's in the air. If your characters are falling through the air or flying through the air or anything like that, I always find FK legs to be really, really useful. And he's got all these great controls on his feet, shaper controls. His feet are really fun, super cartoony. Nice shoelace controls. Okay, so let's go even more in depth by going into his face. Guessing this is his jaw control. Yep. Cool. His mouth corners, ins and outs, ups and downs. And then he's got cheek controls. I'm guessing this is his eyelids. Yep. Eyelids up and down. This is an overall eye mover control, I'm guessing. Yep. This is his eye look at. So if you move this, you'll see that he looks at the eyes. Eyebrows. And you know what? Let's go even crazier. Let's find out what the secondary controls do. Okay. So these secondary controllers are shapers. So let's say if you want like a really cartoony like shape, you know, you would use these. And here are the conventional finger controls. Fingers are set up in an FK setup most of the time. There are some rare instances where you'll see an IK setup on the fingers. I know it's something that they had on Spider-Man. I don't know if it was Spider-Verse, but I know they had this on some Spider-Man movies where, you know, Spider-Man would be up against the wall like this, and they would want the ability to go like this for free almost. Because having to do this in FK would be pretty difficult, right? because you would move your arm forward, but the fingers would go through the wall. So you would have to counter rotate everything just to get into that pose. But if there were IK fingers where there were controls on the ends of the fingers, and you can control it like this, like a puppet, it'd be a lot easier to do that. But standard fingers work in the way that you would expect in an FK chain. Oops, sorry. There we go. Yeah, all the way to the carpals. Metacarpals? Carpals. Okay. Oh, cool. Even got some eye shapers too, and some lip line controls. Those are nice for polishing and stuff. Okay, so let's keep going. He's got a bunch of stuff. Extra controls. So this is just even an extra layer on top of your primary controls in case you want secondary animation, right? Let's say that you're putting animation on the primary controls already, but you need another set of controls to put more animation on top. So instead of like using an animation layer, what you can do is you can use the extra controls and put them on there. You can see that these are pretty much the same control, just like with the lightsaber. This control is a parent of this control. So you can divide those up if you wanted. You can put the translates on this, and then you can put the rotates on this if you want it. I'm not going to get too in-depth with this guy. I feel like I've gotten pretty in-depth already. But I'll really quickly go over the rest of his stuff just because like he's got such great controls on him. These are awesome Bezier controls. And so you can see like the fine amount of detail that you can get in shaping this. It's really, really good. And they all work in conjunction with one another. And these lattice controls are great too. If you want to affect the shape of the character overall, you've got these lattice controls that are just awesome. They kind of treat the entire character as just a 2D image. And this is almost like using like the smudge control in Photoshop or something like that. Okay, cool. Before we get carried away. All right, cool. So that's pretty much a character. Before we move off of using a character, or I guess we go on to the next subject of using a character, I want to talk a little bit about the concept of using a rig. So I talked a little bit about how I like to keep everything simple, and I only use the amount of controls that I need. And so let's say, for example, this guy, the cog control and the chest control. Personally, actually, let me see. There it is. I like my spine in FK. Okay, so these square controllers are FK controllers, and they work in conjunction with one another. When you use the spine, use them together. That's how the spine works. Very, very seldom will you end up using one spine control just like that. Granted, this is a pretty cartoony character, but in reality, there's no joint up here that'll rotate just this part, right? Like even me trying it looks a little ridiculous, and I end up just using my entire spine to make a C curve like this. The spine works together. The entire spine works as a unit. So you should treat it as such when you're using a character. And so one thing I do want to show you guys is, and when I say, I only use as many controls as I need, right? This is a perfect example. So what I did right now was I turned on wireframe unshaded just so I can see the wireframe of our character. And then I'm going to select this box right here that has a cross through it, and I'm going to change it to red so we can see it a little bit better. There we go. Okay, so this is what I'm talking about. If I were to use the twist of this character, right? If I wanted to do this with this character, all right? Normally, what you would do, actually, let's see if okay. Normally what you would do is, like I said, treat the spine as a unit, right? You treat it all together. It works as a unit, so you should treat it as such. So if you wanted to get twist out of the spine, naturally, you would select all three of these and rotate them like this. But what I normally do and what I normally find is that the very, very top control of the spine works just as good for the twist by itself. And so when I need to twist the character, I use this alone. Meaning, when I rotate my spine forward like this, this has all of my X translations. It also has some Z translations, but the only, rotations, I'm sorry, but the only control that has a Y rotation is this control. I get the same amount of, I don't quite get the same amount of twist, but I get enough. And, it allows me to keep my curves even cleaner. Because if there's a twist in the chest, right, that's happening, and I know that I'm working with my character, and maybe he's twisted too far, or I get a note that, that he should be twisted the other way, I know exactly where to find it. I don't have to, I don't have to divide the twist among these three characters. These three controls. I use the top one, and I use the hips. Oops, I'm sorry. I think since it's FK, is probably here. Let's see. So if I were to do it like this, okay, so I don't, this might be the, maybe it's this one? There it is. Okay, so yeah, I would use this, and I would probably use this. That's where I would get my twist. So I don't have all channels on everything keyed. I'm very particular, and I'm very, I try and think through, I try and be smart about it, And, it also, excuse me, it also, or that concept also goes with the idea of keeping your translates on only this, and then keeping your rotates on only this. That way, like, if I know that it has to do with like the bounce of the character or the weight of the character, I know that to look here. And one thing that might be troublesome, I know, is that when I just want to deal with up and down, right? If he's rotated like this, then, my up and down isn't quite my up and down anymore. I can translate him using my world space, but, it might be doing something funny that I don't want to do, that I don't want it to do when I start looking under the hood. Maybe not necessarily with the cog, but maybe with other pieces of the body. Okay, cool. Hopefully that makes sense. The three things that you should be aiming for when you start to open up your rig and before you start animating with it, definitely open it up and definitely like poke around and move things around and find out what does what. But the goal should be simplicity, efficiency, and control, right? You want those three things. Using fewer controls will make your life so much easier. It'll make changes easier. It'll make polish easier. In the event that you have to hand your work off to somebody else, which happens, it's not an uncommon thing. In the event that you have to hand off your work to someone else, it'll be a lot easier for them to make changes to it. And also, it'll be a lot more, you'll get a lot more utility out of something that's animated that way. So let's say you're doing a walk cycle, right? And it's a pretty vanilla walk cycle, and you can use it for a bunch of the background characters. But the way things are keyed, or what's moving what, is really, really messy. And so transferring it onto another character may not be as easy as it normally would be if you just spent a little bit of time thinking about what controls you should use for what purpose. Okay, cool. So now I would like to go over some other things with interacting, or I guess, you know, other things that you use in a production. So what I'm going to start with, I'm going to start with a new scene, and then I'm going to actually, you know what, instead of using the shortcut, I will create a reference, which is Control R, and I'm going to reference in our rig, toy rig. So when you're working on your shot, I highly, highly recommend referencing in your rig. So when you create a reference or you reference in your rig, we talked about references before. It pretty much allows you to use the contents of that reference inside the file you're in now. But if there are any changes that happen to that, that happens in the reference file, not in this file. So you can continue to update the rig if you want, and you won't have to worry about transferring your animation onto like a brand new rig if you didn't reference it. The changes will already be there. You know, they'll update. So some settings about creating a reference. I just created a normal reference. That's pretty much normally what you want to do. But if you go File and Create a Reference, there's an option box here, and you get a bunch of different options. You can put it in a group if you like. You can put a locator there if you want. Most of the time, best guess is fine, but chances are it's either going to be a Maya binary or Maya ASCII. This is a powerful one, especially when this is the same option you have in opening a scene. So load saved reference load state. So you can choose what references that you load when you open your scene. Let's say you have a big scene with a lot of characters in it, and it takes forever to open. So what you normally want to do, or what you would probably want to do, is you want to open it with no references loaded. And so you kind of get that same option when you create a reference. Create reference. Cool. And you have the option to change the namespace if you want. I pretty much just leave everything, all of this at default. The only thing I really do utilize is sometimes putting it in a group just to make my outline a little bit cleaner, outliner a little bit cleaner. And so I want to go over the reference editor. Here we go. File, reference editor. So you can see that this is my list of references down here, and I have the toy rig reference right here. So if I want to unload him, let's say I have a lot of characters, right? I've got a long list of characters here, and I only want to look at a few. You can just check this box. It'll load and unload the character. Or let's say I have the toy rig open in another Maya scene, and I made a change to him, right? And I want that change to be reflected into the scene that I referenced in BIM. So you can just right-click, reference, reload reference. And you'll notice that these menus right here are pretty much the same menus that you'll get up here at the drop-down. And so all of these are pretty self-explanatory. You get the name, you get his namespace. You can use this box to search if you do have a lot of list of rigs, or a long list of rigs, sorry. And these buttons are pretty much the same options that you'd find up here for creating a reference, so on and so forth. The only things that I won't go over these so much, only because the only ones that you're going to want to concern yourselves with are creating references, maybe importing objects from a reference, or maybe saving reference edits. Importing an object from a reference means that it's no longer a reference, it's imported into your scene. And when you save reference edits, that means if you change your reference in your file and you save the reference edits, whatever you changed will save back to the reference file that you were referencing. Okay, so now I would like to go over a picker. So the toy rig, the toy rig uses MG Picker, which I already have installed. I'll just hit that button. Okay, so I'd like to talk about the concept of a picker first. So a picker pretty much allows you to select the controls of the character without looking at them in the viewport, right? So let's say we have our character like this, and I'm using the primary controls, I'm using some extra controls, and I'm using some, and some extra controls. That's a lot to look at. Even if I'm trying to select it, there's a very good chance I'm going to select something that I don't want. When I'm working, when I'm doing production work and I'm animating, my viewport pretty much looks like this. I don't see the controls at all. The way I select the controls is using a picker. And so this is MG Picker Studio. This is one of the other nicer scripts these days that the installation is pretty easy. It's just drag and drop. And what I'm going to do is right here, these ellipses, I'm going to load my picker. Actually, you know what? I'll open it that way. I'm just going to load it from the project that I've been working out of. Here we go. And here we have a GUI for selecting our rig or selecting our character. And so you'll see that there is a section for the body and there's a section for the face. Let me actually, it's a little more intuitive for me, but I'm going to put him on the side. Cool. All right. So the important thing about using a picker is that you have to make sure it's using the correct namespace. Because chances are, if you have a lot of characters in your scene, let's say we have 2 versions of toy in our scene, right? And how is it going to know that I want the head of this one as opposed to the other one? That's where namespaces comes in. Namespaces give a unique name to each instance of our character. And so let me turn these on again so it's a little bit easier to see. And you'll see up here that it says Toy Rig version 19. That is the current namespace of the picker. And you'll see that since, I'll open my reference editor again, the version of my character is version 19. And here's my namespace right here, Toy Rig version 19. So since those namespaces are matching, I'll turn these off again. When I select these controls, I get exactly what I want. This is his cog, I'm sure, and this is his spine. And you can see how much easier it is. I think he's on, this might be his IK spine. Yeah, there we go. But yeah, you can see how much easier it is. So you can see there's a representation for that heart control at the top. There's a control for the head. There's even all these, which are his fingers, and then you can select these just like you would in a Maya viewport. You can shift select them. That way you select all of them at the same time. Let's say these. And then they'll work together just like as you normally would. Let's turn these on just so you can see again. Cool. And here are the IKs for the feet. And so, not all characters have something like this. Thankfully, Toy does, because he's got a lot of stuff, but a lot of good stuff. And so, this speeds up workflow so much. There are ways to edit it also if you want. I personally don't, only because a lot of the time, pickers are shared amongst people in a studio or on a team. A lot of people are using the same kind of picker. But you can select this arrow right here, and you can even see the pop-up. It says click to get into Animator Simple Edit Mode. So you click that, and then you can pretty much add buttons if you want, which I don't actually. And so putting it back on here lets me interact with it like it normally would. But if I were to use this, it would allow me to move the controls like this. But I'm not going to do that. And if you use these ellipses right, I'm sorry. If you see this N right here, it's pretty much set namespace. You can put your namespace in here if you need to change it. Like I said, if there are other characters in there. And then these ellipses here, you get a bunch of other options. I'm not going to get into like the nitty gritty of this stuff, but the most useful ones for you guys would probably be Open Picker and recent picker files. And you can see that I've loaded it recently here. Oh, and you know, you can do the same things for setting the namespace and all that stuff here as well. Cool. Another thing that you'll find in a production that really, really speeds up, you know, production is a library. So I'm going to close that. And Toy uses Studio Library. So let me talk about the concept of library really quick. So, you know, not only does it really speed up the workflow of animators, I think, you know, you can share files amongst team members, which is great. You don't even have to, like, you don't have to save it out or export it out, then transfer it to them. If you just save it to the library, everybody should normally have access to the library and they can get to it from there. But one big strength about the library is that it keeps the character on model. Characters get off model very quickly. And sometimes it's just the slight rotation of like a control and it can throw them way off character. And so if you're trying to manage keeping a character on model throughout like 100 animators, right? I mean, that's almost impossible. So the library helps with that. And so what it is it's exactly, you know, it's pretty intuitive in its name, is that in that it's a library of either poses or, you know, animations. And so this is Studio Library. This is the one Toy uses, which is great. And I will show you how it works. So right here, you can add a folder, or you can add a, hence the plus, you can add a pose, you can add an animation. And you know, when you do these, it'll bring up this right pane over here. It'll allow you to snapshot it here. You can name it, and then you can leave a comment for whatever you want. So let's say if we were going to save one, I don't know, this is a pose. And then I would just say character in default. And then, so I'm actually not going to save it. I don't want to mess up this library. And then down here, we have the mirror table. If we want to mirror poses from left to right or right to left, this is what we would use. Or our selection sets are right here. So there are a number of selection sets that you'll normally find. A really common one for the library is maybe just the body, or just the face, or maybe just the fingers. You know, those are poses that, or they're things that take a lot of time to pose. But, you know, if you use them in a library, then, you know, you get them really quickly. And you can navigate it. You can navigate through here just like you would any normal file structure. You can see that under face and under master cartoon, there are these four. Under full body and under face, you know, there are all these. And you can use the search bar to search if you want. These are all the A's, I'm guessing, for the phonemes, for the mouth. This little funnel right here is kind of a filter, kind of like a filter. It'll show you based off of a, yeah, it'll show you based off of type. You can either see the pose or per folder, or you show all. I'm just going to put show all. These are settings to how you want your UI to look, whether you want the thumbnails to be bigger or smaller, the borders to be thicker or not, how far apart each of these are, you know, go nuts. You can group them by nothing, by type, or by category, meaning like body poses only, face poses only, finger poses only, and you know, ascending and descending. And you can choose whether you want panes or not. Normally it's just like a library like this, but if you're doing something a little bit more involved where you need to look through folders and you need to save stuff out, you can, you know, use the pane view. This is reloading it or refreshing it. Let's say that you do add something to the library and it's not showing up for your teammate. You might want to ask them to refresh it, which is this. And you have a bunch of other options here. They're pretty much similar options to all the other buttons that we saw in the toolbar. You can see here we have the libraries, settings, syncing, saving, resetting, open settings. I try not to touch any of this stuff because I'm really afraid of like messing it up. The only thing that I really normally use if I'm just looking for something is pretty much just the search bar. So I'll give you an example of importing a pose. So let's say I have only curves selected. I'm going to select all these controls, and let's get the, I think there's a waving one. No, maybe high. There we go, high pose. So I can pretty much double click, and it'll apply that pose. Or there are a couple ways that I can do it. You can see here that it'll give me the info of how it was created, who created it, when it was created, how many channels. When they say objects, that's more or less what they mean. And whether we want to key it when it's applied, whether we want to mirror it or not, or whether we want to do a search and replace. So a search and replace pretty much means that if you want, let's say, the top of the spine to be on a different part of the spine on another character, that's what you would use search and replace for, right? Or if you want to use maybe different namespaces, right? Oh, speak the devil. There's namespace right here. Okay, and so actually before I do that, I'm going to Control Z back. Hopefully I get my default. There we go. Cool. So you see the slider down here. We can blend how much of the pose that we want. We can get more and more and more and more and more, all the way to 100. And then we can even go past it if we want and overshoot. Or you can just hit apply. Oops, I'm sorry. Hit apply. There we go. And it'll just give it to us like that. Or you can apply it to certain selection sets. So let's say if I only want this on the body, I don't know if this will work because I don't have selection sets set up, but yeah. So if you select this button here, it'll normally show you the selection sets that you created. So if you created a selection set for the hand and you selected just the hand pose that's in this pose right here, that's the only part that would be applied. That's the only pose that would be applied from this library item. But since I've got everything, I'll just hit apply and I get everything. This is an awesome pose. Hello. Okay, cool. So that pretty much covers everything about rigs and stuff. We went over libraries, went over pickers. We went over references a little bit, using rigs, the concept of using rigs and keeping it simple. Some rig examples and the difference between IK and FK. So this pretty much wraps up the Maya fundamentals portion of this class. When we get back, we don't have class this coming Wednesday. We have class next Monday, so we get this Wednesday off. Starting next Monday, we will start getting into Animbot, which is all this lovely, lovely stuff down here that makes everybody's life easier. But yeah, that is pretty much our lecture for today. I will give you guys the chance to unmute yourselves if you want. Did anybody have any questions? You guys can go ahead and unmute yourselves if you need and ask away, if you so desire. Going once, going twice. Oh yeah, sure.
I have a question.
Yeah. What's up, man?
Do you have access to the studio library when we download the toy rig?
I don't know if you're given access to Studio Library just from the download. I think it depends on what class you're in or what workshop you take. Oh. I think you're given access depending, if you take certain workshops, you're given access to Studio Library. But if you want to use Studio Library and save your own poses, you can. You can just download Studio Library from their website. I put it in the Thinkific lecture portion. The links are in there if you need to grab it from there.
Okay. Okay. Also, I have another question.
Yeah, sure.
In the industry,
Mm-hmm.
like a rigger need to know like scripting to get it, like a kind of job. Like you really need to know scripting.
Before that wasn't so much the case, but now, yes, it is. Yes, you need to know how to code. Ideally in Python.
Yeah. So no matter what, wow.
Is that something that you're looking into?
No, yeah, I usually do batch of rigging, character fish, but I never started like Python.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, I'm a little bit doing Python like that, little bit scripting, but
Mm-hmm.
it's difficult.
Yeah, it's not
When you,
easy. You know, it
yeah,
utilizes a totally different part of your brain that, you know, animators don't normally use.
yeah, it's like, wow.
But it's very useful to have even like a small understanding.
Yeah, there's too much coding, too much plugging, everything is somehow difficult.
But yeah, I hope that helps.
Yeah. Yeah, beside that, I have another small question about camera.
Yeah, sure. What's up?
I was asking like if you are doing animation
Mm-hmm.
and the camera is locked,
Mm-hmm.
like on the camera locking, and you want to zoom like the face.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So how would you approach that? Like when you want to zoom the face, but you don't want to touch the camera?
So I would use 2D pan zoom. I'm going to go over that with you a little bit. So I'm going to open up a sample and I'm going to open up the camera scene. So let's say, for example, that this is our camera. This is our shot, right? And we don't want to touch it. We've locked it right here up in the upper left corner. There's a button right here that locks the camera. And obviously you want to zoom into the face from the camera, but you don't want to be able, or you don't want to touch the camera, right? So what you can do is, actually you can use a tool called 2D pan zoom. You can pan around and zoom inside the viewport using this button right here. You turn that on, and then instead of using Alt, you actually use / I think it's / I actually don't know what you call this button, but it's underneath the backspace button. Let me show you. Hotkey editor. And I will look for 2D pan zoom. Nope. Oh, okay, never mind. Pan. No. Zoom. Wait, I think that was it. Toggle. Here we go. Toggle pan zoom. It's this character. This button right here. So the way you would use Alt in a normal viewport, you use that button instead. And so this is what it'll do, right? If I just press it once, it'll toggle between it being off and it being on. And if I use it like I would Alt, if I hold it down and right click, it'll give me my zoom. If I hold it down and middle click, it'll give me my pan. But if you notice, left click is normally what you use to orbit around, right? It does not give you that option. It lets you zoom out as far as you want, and it lets you pan around, but you don't actually touch the coordinates of the camera.
And when you want to get back to normal?
If you want to go back to normal, you just press the button again. So let's say I need to look at these papers for some reason. So I'll zoom in really close to the papers. I'll do what I need to do. And if I want to snap back to the original view, I'll just either click this button. You can see that it's highlighted right now, so it's on. Or I'll just press that shortcut again.
Or you press Alt and shortcut?
Oh, no, not Alt. Here, I'll show you. Let me go to hotkey.
Oh, you press that button?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, this one.
Yeah.
This one right here underneath backspace. That's the default shortcut for it. Of course, you can change it if you want.
And go back to default.
I'm sorry?
And it go back again to default.
Yeah, if you press it like if you toggle it, it's a toggle.
Oh, it's toggle.
It'll bring you to your 2D pan zoom. If you press it once, you press it again, it'll bring you back to normal.
Oh, okay. Thanks. Because I was trying again to the panel, but every time I go back, no, it's. I have to do like 3. I was counting how many times did I zoom, how many times.
Oh, I see. I see.
Like that.
Actually, you know, in case you're curious, let's say that I zoomed in and I turned left and I zoomed out again, and I want to get back to my original camera view. You know, you can walk the camera view backward to where you were. You can walk through your steps just by using these brackets.
Oh.
In case, you know, in case that helps.
Okay, bracket.
Yeah. Actually, if you can see it on my screen on the bottom right, you'll see what characters I'm pushing. So let's say if I want to walk backward, I use this button, the open bracket. And if I want to walk forward, I use the close bracket.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. You guys got anything else for me? We're good? Okay. Thanks for showing up. I will see you guys on Monday. I'm gonna guess that there'll be more people for the Animbot portion, but I don't know. So we'll see.
I will definitely say that will be more.
Okay.
We can bet on that.
Yeah, okay. Sounds good. Okay, well, I will see you guys on Monday. Take it easy.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
See you.
See ya.
Okay.